A wealthy schoolgirl falls for a troublesome biker, starting a Romeo and Juliet romance that equally ends in tragedy. H is sued after beating a man close to death. Fortunately for him, he is only fined instead of going to prison. Still, his brother Alex and their father urge H to behave, otherwise they won't be able to save him from prison again. However, his concern is that his mother wasn't in his trial, so his father explains that she is on a trip. Pissed, H heads out and drives off on his motorcycle. Meanwhile, Babby prepares for school and joins her sister Daniela and her father Claudio in the car. While stuck in traffic, H arrives nearby and notices Babby peering out the window. Attracted to her, he teases her and even tries to touch her hand before traffic moves along. Later at school, the teacher calls a few of the students, including Babby's friend Katina, to translate a passage. Babby helps her confused friend by sending her the answer through her phone, but the teacher catches them. That night, Mara arrives at a hangout spot for bikers searching for H. When he arrives, his friend Polio quickly asks to borrow money, but the man dismisses him as he begins a competition with Chino. The two men, along with others, proceed to a pavilion where they hold a contest of doing pull-ups from the roof bars. Meanwhile, the sisters attend a party where Babby meets with Katina. When her friend dances with another guy, Babby steps out to get some air, catching Chico's eyes. At the competition, H wins, and to celebrate, he and his gang crash a nearby party, which turns out to be where Babby is. While his friends interrupt the event, H notices Babby with Chico outside, recognizing her. Meanwhile, Katina goes to the bedroom to get her purse, finding Polio already sifting through it. Awkwardly, he returns it, though he takes her money. Despite having just robbed her, Polio asks her out to lunch, so the woman tells him that if she's paying for a date, she'll choose better company. Soon, H approaches Babby, who rolls her eyes upon recognizing him. He tries to flirt with her by mocking her, prompting her to throw her drink at his face. Chico laughs at this and the biker pushes him, causing him to topple over and break a table. H then throws the woman over his shoulder while his gang starts a brawl. With Babby over his shoulder, H jumps into the pool, drenching them. Babby immediately pulls herself out, but when the biker points out how her now wet dress is showing her skin, she jumps back in to hide. Chico then calls the police, so the gang escapes. Chico later drives Babby home only to find the gang surrounding them and smashing the vehicle. The man attempts to swerve to lose them, but when he hits the brakes, one biker crashes against him and gets thrown over. Still, Chico drives off, so H continues the pursuit. Chico eventually parks to assess the damage only to find H behind him. The biker threatens the man while Babby searches for help. She soon stops the passing Santa Marias, begging them to help. However, H elbows Mr. Santa Maria, so his wife directs him and Babby to their car to escape. However, Babby refuses to abandon Chico, so she jumps on H. In contrast, the moment the biker is off of him, Chico escapes, leaving the woman with their attacker. The biker taunts Babby about this before going to his motorcycle. Only then does the woman realize that she's stuck in the middle of nowhere, so with no choice, she accepts a ride from H. They soon arrive in town just as her parents spot them. Daniela also passes by, so their mother, Rafaela, sends them to their car. In the back seat, Daniela reveals to her sister that H is the famous biker Hugo Oliveira. However, he now goes by H after a horrible event happened. The next day, Polio takes H to the school to wait for Katina, only to discover that the woman is friends with Babby. The ladies recognize the bikers, yet despite the man stealing her money, Katina greets Polio, interested in him. The two even invite their friends on a double date, but Babby walks off, refusing to be with the troublemakers. That night, H has dinner with his father. The man asks for his mother, but his father claims she's on another trip. This ruins his appetite, so he goes to his old bedroom where he recalls how he used to be close with his mother, Rebecca. This all changed when H beat up their neighbor. Their lawyer questioned his mother about the victim, insisting that if they couldn't establish a prior connection between him and H, her son might get incarcerated. However, Rebecca insisted that the two didn't know each other. Hearing this, H moved out of his parents' home and into his brother's place to distance himself from his mother. On another day, Babby and Katina jog, with the latter defending how Polio is actually nice. He even invited her to watch a race tonight, and Katina wants her friend to join. Babby vehemently refuses, not wanting to see H again. Later, Babby's parents confront her about Mr. Santa Maria's injury during H and Chico's fight. They want to sue the biker, so they demand her to tell them his name. Despite Daniela's protest, Babby tells them. That night, Katina's mother calls since her friend claimed that she was sleeping over at their house. Because of this, Babby lies to the woman, then calls her friend right after. To her dismay, Katina isn't answering. So Babby soon arrives at the port where she immediately finds her. She tells her friend that her mother will pick her up early in the morning. She begs Katina to be there as she doesn't want to get in trouble for lying. Just then, H finds the woman, teasing that she went there to see him. Refusing to be intimidated, Babby taunts H that he'll soon be in prison for hurting Mr. Santa Maria. Polio worries about this, but the man is confident that Babby will lie for him in court since she'll have fallen for him by then. The racers are soon called, so H invites Babby to ride with him. She refuses, so a jealous Mara volunteers instead, mocking Babby for being scared. Pissed, the woman decides to ride to prove herself, so H rides off, stealing her scarf to taunt her further. Chino then offers Babby a ride and the woman hops on. With that, the bikers gather for the race. To Babby's horror, the women sit with the backs to their riders, securing themselves with only a belt, leaving her no choice but to do the same. The race starts and Babby lets out a yelp. Chino and H are at the head of the race, but when they're close to the finish, another bike slips, making the driver and passenger fall. Seeing this, Babby yells at Chino to stop so she can rush to the scene. Coincidentally, police arrive, causing the bikers to flee. Babby urges the men to get the crash victims to an ambulance, but the officers start apprehending the gang. Babby also gets apprehended, but H kicks the officer off of her, letting her escape with him. With the cops on their tail, H lets the woman off at the bridge to hide while he leads them away. When she goes over the bridge, however, she falls. When H returns for her, Babby reveals that she fell into waste. The biker refuses to let her on his bike given the mess, so he suggests she remove her clothes and wear his jacket. With no choice, Babby moves away to remove her soiled clothes, only to see H peering at her from his side mirror. She scolds him, but a dog starts running to them, scaring her into hopping on his bike. He soon drops her off at home, but before she leaves, the man pulls her close, appreciating her body and kissing her cheek. Enticed, the woman leans, but he pulls away, reminding her how disgusted she is of him yet is waiting for him to kiss her. Embarrassed, Babby slaps him and throws his jacket at him before going home. H then visits Mara, who's still jealous over him and Babby. Despite this, she accepts his affections, though Babby's scarf is still wrapped on his wrist. The following morning, Alex finds a photo of his brother and Babby escaping the raid in the newspaper. Elsewhere, H breaks into Babby's room carrying a roll. That evening, Babby receives a message from Katina, teasing her that H is waiting for her. Only then does the woman notice that the biker had taped a copy of their newspaper photo on her ceiling. This inspires her to see him again. Soon, Babby arrives at the club and spots H. Instead of approaching, she dances to catch his attention. This works as H goes to her. They dance together, feeling the tension between them until they finally kiss. Hours later, a smitten Babby sneaks back home only for Rafaela to catch her. She has seen her in the newspaper, thus making her suspect Babby's nightly activities. The woman blames H for influencing her, and when Babby defends him, she slaps her. Claudia overhears them, so Babby retreats to a room. On another night, H calls the woman from the payphone outside her home. However, she can't meet him since she's grounded, so instead, Babby tells him to pick her up at school. H does so the next day, not knowing that Babby's teacher has seen them. As the new couple stops at a traffic light, H spots the man he beat up on the car beside them. Next to him is Rebecca, revealing that the man he attacked was his mother's lover. This triggers H's rage, much to Babby's confusion. Because of this, H speeds off too fast as he recalls how he caught his mother. Months ago, as he was heading out, he passed by a neighbor's apartment. The door was open, allowing him to spot his mother's bag on the coat rack. So H stormed in, catching his mother there. This led to him beating up their neighbor while his mother begged him to stop. Babby also begs him to stop, scared of his reckless driving. Eventually, the man stops and shifts his rage towards a dumpster. Babby desperately holds him back and asks who was the woman in the car, so he tells her that it was his mother. H proceeds to tell her his story, which even Alex and their father still don't know about. Instead, they believe Rebecca is just away on a trip. The couple then spend the day in peace. When H initiates intimacy, Babby hesitates since they're out in the open, so he relents. They later walk along the beach and Babby points to a nearby house that she and Daniela used to dream of owning. When she gets home, Babby forges her mother's signature to make a fake excuse for why she was absent. Just then, Rafaela introduces the new neighbor, Gustavo, and asks Babby to tour him around town. However, her daughter claims to have plans tonight. That night, Babby and Katina hang out with of the bikers, openly showing off their relationships. Mara then approaches her rival to return her scarf, adding that H used it to tie her up during their night together. Hurt, Babby grabs her scarf, but the woman pulls her by the hair while her friend holds Katina back. This starts a fight between the ladies while the crowd cheers. Babby even shoves Mara against some bikes before pinning her down. Finally, H realizes what's happening, so he takes Babby away. After getting away, Babby feels guilty over hurting Mara, but her boyfriend compliments how she fought for him. To celebrate her newfound tenacity, the man convinces her to get a tattoo with his initial. To the man's surprise, H later finds Claudio in his home. He invites the father to talk at a bar and acknowledges their concern for Babby. He admits that he's reckless since he wants to blur everything around him. But since he met Babby, she's helped him calm down, so he greatly appreciates her. After convincing Claudio of his affection for Babby, H returns home only for Alex to reveal the court summons from the Santa Marias. He scolds his brother for getting in trouble again, but H pins him to the wall, criticizing how Alex shouldn't judge him since he only knows how to work and not enjoy life. To both of their surprise, H calms down and apologizes before going to his room. The next day, Babby presents her absent form to her teacher, though the woman reveals that she has already spoken to her mother who didn't know she skipped school the other day. Because of this, Babby faces the threat of expulsion, so Rafaela pays 8,000 euros to keep her in school. However, she sees at how her daughter fooled them and even bans Katina from befriending her daughter, seeing her as a bad influence. H later learns about what happened, so he calls his girlfriend to check on her. Despite not being expelled, Babby worries that her records will be tarnished and she won't get into college. Suddenly, H climbs through her window. He helps her sneak out and leads her to an indoor pool where Polio and Katina are. The couples have fun in the water, though when H and Babby start to get passionate, she hesitates again, confessing that she's inexperienced. Still, the night gets better when Katina announces that Polio proposed to her, giving them more to celebrate. H even assures his girlfriend that he won't hurry her to be intimate with him. The following morning, the biker sneaks into the school to speak to Babby's teacher. He orders her to be more lenient towards Babby, otherwise she won't see her dog, Pepito, anymore. Pepito's actually in Alex's house with H and Polio caring for him. Meanwhile, Babby's father invites her to watch a movie, but his daughter reminds him that she's grounded. She also laments that she is supposed to hang out with Katina, and despite knowing where she is really going, Claudio gives her permission. With this, Babby meets with H. Claudio even sees them outside, smiling as he recognizes the two's feelings for each other. H surprises Babby by taking her to the house she and her sister dreamed of. They spend the night there, and the romantic moment has Babby agreeing to take the relationship to the next level. On another day, H and Polio visit Babby with Pepito while she is babysitting a neighbor's kid. With Polio and the dog keeping the kid busy, the couple retreat to Babby's room where the woman performs an alluring dance. This is interrupted when Polio invites the gang into her house. Panicked by the chaos, Babby throws everyone out, including H. After this, Babby distances herself from her boyfriend, so the man makes an effort to cook her a romantic dinner to make amends. However, Babby refuses to go since her late grandmother's ring is missing. She suspects that H's friends took it, making her realize that her boyfriend being in a gang puts her at risk. Because of this, she refuses to see him again. Determined to make amends, H goes to Chino, figuring that he took the ring. This instantly starts a brawl, which triggers H's rage, leading to him pummeling Chino. Mara hurries to stop him, confessing that she has the ring. With that, he takes the ring and rushes to Babby's house. However, the sisters hear the rage in his voice, so they refuse to let him in out of fear. Babby even threatens to call the police, but H promises that he's just there to return the ring. With that, Babby carefully opens the door and H calms down. Days later, the trial between H and the Santa Marias commences. Babby is called as a witness, but she ultimately refuses to testify against H. Because of this, Rafaela scolds Babby given that they've promised to help the Santa Marias. However, Babby asserts that she didn't agree to that promise. She asks her mother to stop controlling her as she doesn't want to grow old and lousy like her. She then leaves with her boyfriend, leaving Rafaela broken. Despite standing up for him, Babby tells H that she won't lie for him again, so he needs to change his reckless ways. Eventually, Katina and Babby pass their finals, so Polio and H return Pepito to their teacher. As her mother plans a party to celebrate her graduation and birthday, Babby soon visits her teacher to thank her for her help, only to find Pepito with a woman. Meanwhile, Polio tells H that he plans to win a race for Katina, so his friend promises to watch him. To their surprise, Babby visits. She figures out that H threatened her teacher teacher, making her feel that her efforts at school were for nothing. The betrayal convinces Babby to break things off. That night, Polio prepares for his race, but H remains at home, heartbroken. Babby soon attends her party where Gustavo shows interest in her, though Daniela warns him about her biker boyfriend. Suddenly, H arrives looking all polished for his beloved. Seeing this as his promise to do better, Babby kisses him. As the two reunite, Katina straps herself to Polio. The race starts with Chino competing closely against Polio. At the height of the race, however, Polio's bike slips just as Gustavo accidentally spills wine on Babby's dress. This has H yelling at the man, and when Gustavo defends himself, the man punches him. Babby defends Gustavo since it was an accident. As H realizes that he's upset her again, Daniela receives a troubling call. H and Babby soon rush to the port where they find Katina injured. The woman begs them to figure out what happened to Polio, so H checks and finds his best friend in a body bag. Babby and Katina hear H's anguish as he mourns his best friend. He then takes his anger out on his bike, blaming it for killing Polio, so Babby rushes to him. The pain, however, overwhelms her, so the woman walks away in tears. H catches up to her, but Babby tells him that she can't handle the death and chaos of his life anymore. The emotional woman even blames him for Polio's death and her best friend's loss. Hearing this, H slaps Babby, raising his hand at her for the first time. Without another word, Babby leaves, forcing H to face his grief alone. In the next days, Babby mourns while H pours his anguish out by punishing himself. Eventually, Gustavo helps the woman recover, and this begins a new relationship. Meanwhile, H continues to cling to his memories with Babby. Months later, Katina visits H to give him a framed photo of him and Polio. This brings H to tears as the two still long for the deceased man. Katina laments that she'll never meet anyone like Polio, and H agrees, though he assures her that she'll still find someone who'll make her happy. With that in mind, she mentions how Babby has moved on, so Katina advises H to do the same. Struggling to do so, H later calls Babby from the payphone in front of her home. Rafaela answers just as Babby and Gustavo are heading out. Recognizing his voice, she doesn't tell Babby that H called and instead hangs up. H even sees Gustavo's car exit, with Babby catching a glimpse of her ex-boyfriend in the rain. Alex later finds his heartbroken brother grieving the life he lost, so he holds onto him for comfort. Eventually, Babby becomes intimate with Gustavo, though when he touches her tattoo for H, she's tearfully reminded of what she lost as well. Meanwhile, H tells his brother that he'll go to London to leave his past behind. As the former biker looks back at the beach house where he spent the evening with Babby, he wonders if that wasn't the beginning of their story. He imagines that they've actually met on that same beach as kids, proving that they were meant to be. However, he accepts that their chance is gone and it's time to move on.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.